Welcome back to the Blazor Puzzle. I'm Carl Franklin from AppVNext, and that's Jeff Fritz from Microsoft.
How do?
How do? You've been a busy boy.
Man, let me tell you, it is the week after .NET Conf, and I can breathe.
Yeah.
I tell you, Carl, I spent the last 6 months planning and getting ready for the event, and I've been so focused on building the event that I haven't actually read and learned as much .NET 8 as I would normally be learned and skilled up on at this point. So I've been diving in and spending a lot more time learning Blazor with .NET 8 and really enjoying what I've been finding.
It's very cool stuff. Although, if you're used to .NET 7, Blazor, and any previous versions of .NET, there's some things that you'd have to figure out and things that you need to understand, and that's why you're watching the Blazor Puzzle. So from now on, I think we're going to be .NET 8 or bust, right?
Yeah, .NET 8, here we go.
So the last puzzle, we took a week off for Thanksgiving holiday in America, but the last puzzle we showed at .NET Conf. And it's basically a .NET 7 Blazor server app that loads 5,000 people from a JSON file and displays them in a quick grid. And it does paging, so it doesn't show them all at once.
Yeah.
And the task is to upgrade this project to a .NET 8 Blazor Web App using the new auto render mode, or interactive auto. And this is basically what it looks like. So we've got a bunch of people here. Let me make sure they all fit on the screen. And we can scroll and page through them. The data doesn't matter. I just filled it with random stuff. But let's look at the code. In particular, I want to look at the model person. We've got this foreign key right here. And if you look in the data at people.json, you see that each of these foreign key properties is initialized with a GUID.
Yeah.
Right. So when we upgrade, I want to hide that from the users. I don't want to send that down to the client. So the rest of this is pretty simple. You've got a persons manager right here that gets all the people, right? And in our page, our index page, we're using the quick grid, but I'll scroll down here to load people. We're calling persons manager get all people. We have a list of person, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a pagination state for the quick grid and an iQueryable where we get people as a queryable, and that gives us an iQueryable of person because that's what quick grid wants. So right here, you see items is items queryable, pagination, right there, and then we have our columns. And I'm not showing the foreign key. However, you can be damn sure that it showed up in the data. So we want to rewrite this as a .NET 8 Blazor Web App with interactive mode auto.
Now, I've been watching and reading the documentation. All we got to do is go into that CSproj file and just set it to .NET 8, right? That's it. That's all we got to do. And Bob's your uncle, right?
No. Quite a bit more than that, actually.
Okay.
If we were just going to use Blazor Server, it would kind of be that easy. But when you're using the interactive auto render mode, you have to write the app as if it was going to be a hosted WebAssembly app.
And let's just touch on what that render mode auto means, right? We've got 3 new render modes for interactive Blazor applications.
Right. Yeah, so we have actually 4. We have server-side rendering, which is just static. And then we have server, which uses the, WebSockets and a circuit. And then we have WebAssembly. And then we have auto. And auto will start out as Blazor Server with a circuit, downloading all the WebAssembly DLLs in the background, including your code, right? And then as soon as it is all ready to go, it switches over and you're running on WebAssembly. So architecturally, you have to consider what that means. You have to have the services that your WebAssembly app is going to use also added on the server, right? You have to have some sort of separation between your data and the client. In this case, we're going to use a web API. But when you're in server mode, you also have to call the web API. I mean, that's just the easiest way to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could try to, figure out how to do it this way if we're on server and this way if we're on client, but the safest and easiest and best way to do it is to use the same components. I mean, I'm not even going to talk about the repository pattern because you could use that here,
Sure.
But just in the interest of being simple, we're going to do it the other way. All right, so let's jump in here. I'm going to create a new Blazor Web App. I'm going to call it Puzzle 13 Upgrade. Now here's where it gets fun, folks. We want to use interactive render mode auto, server and WebAssembly, and we want it global, and we don't want to include the sample pages. So I got a feeling, Jeff, that this is kind of what people want. They want to be able to start here. And I want to use sample pages. I want to use auto mode because that's the most powerful. And I want it to be global. I want it to be always on. I don't want to have to pick and choose. This one runs with server. This one runs with WebAssembly. And I think this is the most powerful option. So that's what we have opted for.
It's certainly the most flexible, but it also means you have to write a little bit more code. And as you said, you're going to need to be a little bit more clever in how your code executes, because it could be running on the client, it could be running on the server.
That's exactly right. Okay, so now a word about this. You see two projects here. This one is called Puzzle 13 Upgrade, but it really might as well be called Puzzle 13 Upgrade.server, because this is all code that runs on the server. This right here is the client, and this is the WebAssembly project. But the server has a reference to the client. And so the server will use in server mode all of the pages and the layout and all the stuff that you put in here, right, in server mode. So you don't really have to have a shared project where you put models. If you put models in the client, the server's going to see them just as well. So that's one kind of weird difference that people might explore or run into. So the first thing let's do is add a models folder. And to this, I'm going to add not person, but DTO person, a data transfer object. Now here's the deal. I'm not going to change the data in the JSON file. I'm just going to deserialize my list as DTO person, which does not have the foreign key. It's as simple as that. So if you remember, there was that generic person PNG in the web root. And also notice this, the web root is here in what I'm calling the server project, even though, it's a web root. So anything that's in that web root is going to be used by the client as well. Even though the client doesn't have a reference to the server, the reference goes the other way, but it knows. So just know that the web root is always in the server project. And that's another thing that might be a little weird. But we're going to add that generic person in there now. There, I just copied it out, put it in. So that's what the photo URL is going to be.
And that photo URL could be coming from any of many different locations. It could be a Gravatar URL. It could be coming out of Azure Blob Storage, AWS S3. You have a bunch of different places you could be pulling it from. We've got a default image that you're pulling from the application that we're deploying here.
Exactly, because it's not about data access. It's about, the client. It's about the Blazor code. This demo is. Okay, so let's go up to the server, and we're going to add a data folder. And in here, we're going to add the person manager. Now, this looks the same as the person manager in the .NET 7 Blazor server app, except that you notice that we're deserializing to DTO person. But it's the same data, right?
Let's make sure we copy over that people JSON file as well.
Yeah, let's do that now. There it is right there. And just to show you that it does have the foreign key in the data.
There it is.
There it is. Except we're going to exclude it. Okay, now let's add a controller. Controllers folder. All right, so we're going to add person controller right there. Pretty simple.
Okay.
Simplifying. So now we need a couple of packages on the client. To continue, we're going to need extensions HTTP so we can configure an HTTP client. And we're going to need the Quick Grid, which is now version 8.00, but it's a separate package still. Next, we're going to add a services folder to the client and add API service. Okay, so this takes the NHTTP client that's already configured with a base address. We'll get to that in a minute. We have our get people async, and we have to have a base address right there. Otherwise, we're just going to return an empty set or an empty list. I had a debug write line in here just because I was testing that out. No big deal. And now I'm calling API/person. And if you look up in the person's controller, the route is API/controller. And then I'm checking for a success status code, and I'm deserializing that into people and returning people.
Makes sense. All right, I'm on board.
Okay, next, we're going to configure program CS on the client. This is how we add an HTTP client with a base address set to the host environment, just like we used to do in a hosted WebAssembly app. And then we're going to add it as a scoped service with iHTTP Client Factory create client. And then we can add API service, which is going to use that configured client. Now you have to do this step. Otherwise, it ain't going to work. Okay, let's configure program CS on the server. Okay, right here, we're going to add an HTTP client with the base address set to whatever the localhost port is. And we're trying to figure out a cleaner way to do this, but we have yet to figure that out. If there are any alert listeners that have discovered a way to do that, please let us know. But anyway, this port is probably wrong, so I'm going to find the right port by going to Properties, Launch Settings, and down here under HTTPS, that's the one I want, 7074. Okay, now notice I'm also adding API service as a scoped service to the server project. And I've also called add controllers. That's required if we're going to use an API controller. Now down here, we're simply going to say app.mapControllers.
Just like we did before in previous versions of ASP.NET Core, when you want to add API controllers to your ASP.NET project.
Right. Now this is the server project, and this is what the template gives you if you're going to do auto mode. You need to add interactive server render mode, add interactive WebAssembly render mode, and then additional assemblies. However, if you want all of the pages and all of the components in the client project, do imports. It's just an easy way to make it happen. Because when you're creating this project with a template and you say include sample pages, you're only going to get counter here. But if you want them all, use imports. We're learning a lot here, aren't we?
It's a bold new world we got to learn.
It's a bold new world, and this is a great way to jump in. Now, one thing you'll find is that there's no CSS folder and there's no Bootstrap in here. So if you don't ask for the sample pages, you're not going to get Bootstrap.
The default layout and formatting goodies.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, most people want to start without Bootstrap because it's very easy to add it. So that's what we're going to do now. And you can get that Bootstrap folder by going to the web and downloading it, or you can just create a new project with the sample pages and pull it out of there.
I like to use the client library installer to grab frameworks like Bootstrap and other components that I want to use, like the Bootstrap icons as well.
All right, so I've added the Bootstrap folder from a previous project, and now we have to add a link to it. So go to Components on the server and AppRaiser, because that's our new _host.cshtml. I'm just going to add a link right here. So now we got good Bootstrap. Now, how are we going to take advantage of that? Because if you look in main layout, there are no divs and classes and CSS around this. So let's add back the markup that has the Bootstrap stuff in it. There it is. And I don't need the top. You know, all I want is just the stuff around the body. That's it. Don't need the nav menu. All right, one last thing before we modify the home page, and that is to add a couple of things to _imports. There we go. System text JSON and the services folder, client services. And now we can put in our code.
So can we just copy that over from the .NET 7 version of the layout?
Almost. It's not quite the same. So I've got all the same stuff that I had before. I've got load people. I'm getting this from the API service, so that's different, Jeff. I've injected the API service in here because we can't just, there we go. Now everything is coloring. Because we can't just access the data. We're on the client. Or we might be on the server at first, but we're going to eventually be on the client.
We want to route through our strongly typed HTTP client there that knows how to talk to the service.
Yep. So I also put this thing at the top. Platform at operating system.isBrowser. And if it is, we're going to say WASM. If it's not, we're going to say server. So this is a neat little way that you can tell, you know, where you're running. Are you running on the server or are you running in WebAssembly? And let's run this, and then I'll tell you about a bug.
It might be nice to hide that little indicator behind an environment tag helper, so you only show it when you're in development mode.
That's a good idea, but I actually wanted to show it in release mode as well, and I'll show you why. There we go. Now we're at WASM. So we'll load all people.
And now it's responsive.
Yep. And there we go. Now, we can guarantee that that data does not contain the foreign key because it's not even on the model that we're showing here.
Right.
That's
now,
it.
And to be clear, the issue with that server, while it was running on the server, with auto interactive mode, we should be able to still interact.
That's right.
And get this grid rendering from the server.
Yes.
We did all that great work to make sure that it runs on the server, and it doesn't run on the server right now while we're waiting for the WebAssembly content to load in the background.
You are exactly right. And I can demonstrate this by showing a version that I published to Azure. And you can see there, it doesn't take as long, but I'm going to press F5. And when it says server, I'm going to click and nothing will happen. Watch this. Click, click, nothing. And then as soon as it went to WASM, you saw it go dark. And
yep.
Yeah. So anyway, this is bug, and I'm sure it'll be fixed soon. I talked about it in the last episode of Blazor Train. So hang on to your hats, folks. I think that'll be it. But anyway, that is the big old solution to Puzzle 13, and we did not get any submissions. And I think it's just because it's so new. And that people aren't ready for this yet.
There's a lot of steps there to go through, and I think we're all trying to get through and get our arms around upgrading. So that's okay. Yeah.
So Jeff, let's get to Puzzle 14.
All right, let's do it.
So for this one, I'm going to create a new Blazor Web App, a new .NET 8 Blazor Web App.
As I'm sure many of us are. Okay.
And I'll call this Puzzle 14. I don't know. It just came to me.
Brilliant.
Yeah. This time, the interactive render mode is going to be server.
Okay.
And I'm not going to include sample apps. And I'm just going to create it.
Sounds good. Take a little bit of control of things, but have everything run on the server.
Exactly. So I got my home page up here, and I'm just going to add a button. And we have a button, click me, and a message. And when the button click happens, button clicked at now. And it doesn't work, and I just want to know why.
What? It doesn't work?
Yeah, it doesn't work.
We've been
I know.
doing this for a couple years now, Carl.
I know.
You just added a button.
We just added a button.
What?
Exactly. So
Click
here
the
we go. Clicking the button. Let's put a breakpoint in there.
No, Steve! Somebody call Steve. It's not working. Carl broke the button. What?
Here
Come
we go.
on, man. This is just out of the box experience. What did you do?
It ain't
Carl!
working, man. So the simple question is, why doesn't it work? No.
Why doesn't it work? Somebody call somebody. The thing. It's right here.
Now, if you think you know the answer, don't post it on social media, but send it to Jeff and me at BlazorPuzzle at appphoenix.com. And we'll pick a winner from all the right answers. Yeah. And that winner will get one of these. A BlazorPuzzle coffee mug.
Does it come with coffee?
No, unfortunately. And we're also going to give away one of these. A BlazorPuzzle t-shirt. So get busy, folks. Do exactly what I did or go to the repo. Here's the repo URL.
Yep.
Go there, download it, or just do what I did. I mean, you could follow along with it, and in 5 minutes you'll have the same problem.
You're telling me that this isn't a bug. This is a solvable problem.
It's a solvable problem.
All right. I'm going to go look back at that code there closely, Carl. I got to figure this out.
Yeah, okay. The rest of you will figure it out too. All right, we'll see you next week on BlazorPuzzle.
Take care, friends.
Bye. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out blazortrain.com and the .NETshow.com for more great content.